Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I have two meditation books with me today, both Melody Beatty books. I have The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beatty, which is the sister companion book to Codependent No More. And I also have Journey to the Heart, Daily Meditations on the Path to Freeing Your Soul, which you can see is my favorite because it's so tattered and torn. I have had this book for years and years and years. I love it so much. I actually received a direct message today from somebody saying, thank you so much for introducing them to Melody Beatty. And, you know, I don't remember who years ago suggested that I read the book Codependent No More, but it, like, literally changed my life. And I tell people this all the time, you know, in my personal life, and they'll say, like, what's a book that really profoundly changed you? Next to my 12-step basic text, I would say Codependent No More by Melody Beatty has profoundly affected me the most. It's really made me look at my interactions with other people, and, you know, how I play off of other people, and how I define myself with my relationships with other people. And you don't have to be somebody that has a relationship with an alcoholic or an addict to learn a lot from that book. In fact, if you take the things that are in there and you apply them, you know, just to your daily life, trust me, you'll be like, oh my God. And I think that the word codependency has such a negative connotation, which it really isn't a negative word, you know? I mean, we think of somebody and we'll say, oh, they're codependent. You know, they're really codependent. And we think of that as like a negative word, but I think it's a misdefinition. I don't even know if that's a word, but, you know, we're not really using it appropriately, right? Because to be codependent just means that you define your existence off of somebody else to some degree, right? Or that, you know, like, who are you in relation to somebody else? And so really what it's about is taking back the power to focus on yourself. That's why 12-step programs that are for friends and family members of alcoholics and addicts, like Al-Anon and Nar-Anon and things like that, they aren't focused on how you fix the alcoholic or addict. They're focused on how you take care of yourself, you know? So if you go into Al-Anon, you're not going to learn all these tricks to fix your alcoholic. You're just not, right? You're going to go in there and you're going to work a 12-step program on yourself. So instead of saying, you know, like for step one, you know, that I'm powerless over alcohol or drugs and my life would become unmanageable, you're powerless over the alcoholic or the addict in your life, you know, and your life would become unmanageable. And so it's looking at how your life is defined by having these other people in your life. Well, I mean, it doesn't just have to be an alcoholic or an addict that has a codependent relationship with somebody else, you know? And when I read the book, I started seeing that, and maybe it's because I was raised in an alcoholic home, I don't know, but I started realizing that I had very codependent relationships with most people in my life, you know, that I defined who I was off of my interactions with other people. So if you have never read the book Codependent No More, I mean, I don't get anything out of it unless you go buy it from my Amazon store linked below, and that's probably like 30 cents or something. But anyway, if you've never read it, go check it out. It's at any library, half-price books. You can, I've seen it, you know, at other like thrift stores and stuff too, I think. So go there and just trust me. I have never given this. I always keep like a copy up in there. You can see this is like my newest copy for myself, but I always have a copy up there that I just give away to somebody. I think the last copy that I gave away was to Alex's mom, and she just was like blown away. She was like, I loved this book. So it can help anybody. It can help you with work relationships. It can help you with sibling relationships. It doesn't have to be, you know, somebody that's an alcoholic or an addict. So anyway, all right, here it says in here, join Melody in recovery each day. Melody Beatty integrates her own life experiences and fundamental recovery reflections in this unique daily meditation book, inspiring us to understand our own recovery process. See, it's not about other people. Melody returns to the fundamentals of codependency recovery, letting ourselves feel all our emotions, accepting powerlessness and owning our own power. Throughout The Language of Letting Go, the author of Codependent No More and Beyond Codependency, which is the second book she wrote, emphasizes our need to stay focused on recovery principles. Not recovery from addiction, recovery from codependency. Problems are made to be solved, Melody reminds us, and the best thing we can do is take responsibility for our own pain and self-care. She guides us through the days, encouraging us to remember that each day is an opportunity for growth and renewal. See, none of this stuff that I say over here is like this, oh my God, why is this person in the world? It's all stuff that was passed down to me that I have just like heard over and over and over and over. And so I just try to apply it to my life. You know, I try to get up on a daily basis and do the best I can do and look at every single day as an opportunity for growth and to be the best version of myself that I can be for that day. So, I mean, these are things that I've just heard, before. So, all right. I wanted to see if she put it at the beginning of it. It has dedications, but she doesn't have like a definition in here for codependency. All right, let's go into July 14th. Oh, I just pulled it right open. July 14th. We are lovable. My battery is really low, you guys. I'm hoping it doesn't stop. Even if the most important... Okay, wait. July 14th, we are lovable. Even if the most important person in your world rejects you, you are still real, and you are still okay. Codependent no more. Do you ever find yourself thinking, how could anyone possibly love me? For many of us, this is a deeply ingrained belief that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Thinking we are unlovable can sabotage our relationships with coworkers, friends, family members, and other loved ones. This belief can cause us to choose or stay in relationships that are less than we deserve because we don't believe we deserve better. Okay, Boo Radley. We may become desperate and cling as if a particular person was our last chance at love. We may become defensive and push people away. We may withdraw or constantly overreact. While growing up, many of us did not receive the unconditional love we deserved. Many of us were abandoned or neglected by important people in our life. We may have concluded that the reason we weren't loved was because we were unlovable. Blaming ourselves is an understandable reaction, but an inappropriate one. If others couldn't love us or love us in ways that worked, that's not our fault. In recovery, we're learning to separate ourselves from the behavior of others, and we're learning to take responsibility for our healing, regardless of the people around us. Just as we may have believed that we're unlovable, we can become skilled at practicing the belief that we are lovable. This new belief will improve the quality of our relationships. It will improve our most important relationship, our relationship with ourselves. We will be able to let others love us and become open to the love and friendship we deserve. Today, God, help me be aware and release any self-defeating beliefs I have about being unlovable. Help me begin today to tell myself that I am lovable. Help me practice this belief until it gets into my core and manifests itself in my relationships. I love this meditation. I don't know that I believed that I was unlovable. That's probably not a sentiment that I respond to. I grew up in a house that, yes, was chaotic and toxic and I was the child of an alcoholic. But I was surrounded by so much love and affection that it was very confusing at times, But both of my parents were extremely affectionate and, loving, and they said, I love you several times a day, and my whole family, my aunt, my uncle, everybody. I felt a lot of love in my family. So I don't know that I necessarily have this idea that I was unlovable. And I think like in junior high and high school, even at home, like I would have my parents would say things to me like, you have to love yourself. Like my mom was into all of that, like I'm okay, you're okay. Those books from like the 70s. You remember those books? Okay. She was into all of that, and the Scott Peck books, which are fantastic. And so, she would always say, you have to love yourself, I think where it came in and it was difficult was at home I was lovable, but like at school I was unlovable, because everybody was like putting me down and I was bullied and I was like, oh, like he's not okay and all this kind of stuff, right? And it was hard, it was so hard to like go to school and kind of have this like nobody really cared about me, like I was talking about this in a vlog not too long ago. I was thinking about the grades like 7th, 8th, and 9th, and until like the tail end of 9th grade when I found some friends, these girls that I ended up hanging out with in high school. I really 7th and 8th grade were kind of a split off year that people started finding their own cliques and groups and stuff like that. I had nobody. I was really, really lonely. And I think I've kind of forgotten about it a little bit. I was remembering how I spent my lunches at the library with the librarian that worked in the school library. And I have to say, in retrospect, she wasn't, super nice to me or anything. I don't remember her. I remember talking to her and asking if I could help. And I can remember her thinking it was kind of she didn't come out and say it, but I can remember knowing that she thought it was kind of bizarre that I was hanging out. There was, one other kid that hung out, in the library, too. We both kind of became friends over time, and we were both kind of weirdos that were probably picked on, and I didn't want to be in the cafeteria. And I was thinking about this, after I got off that vlog that night, I was really, really lonely, 7th and 8th grade. And I think, you talk about those, fundamental developmental years, I think I was lonely to the point where the loneliness was worse than the bullying. It was if they were bullying me, at least I was somebody. But when I was not being bullied and nobody was looking at me or talking to me, which you would think would sound like a great thing, it was I didn't matter. It was I had, for so long I'd been bullied and then I just didn't matter. I was forgotten. And, 6th grade was probably my best grade ever, growing up. I had 2 girlfriends that I was really close with, and it just was a fantastic year for me, you know, and like everybody was close, and we came from all these different elementary schools, and nobody was picking on me, and you know, it just, 6th grade was a great year. And then I can remember going into 7th grade, I could get real emotional talking about this. I just remember going into 7th grade thinking it was gonna be the same thing. I was friends with those girls the whole summer. Well, it wasn't, you know? And even strangely enough, I remember the 7th grade Washington, D.C. trip, and I did not go because I didn't have any friends. You know, the trip where everybody goes to Washington, D.C. And I remember, because I didn't go, there was like probably 3 of us that didn't go. Because I didn't go, when everybody came back, I literally was like odd man out. Like they had all bonded on this trip. And I was terrified to go because I didn't want to be in a room with like, you know, guys that made fun of me every single time. I could not imagine like a worse hell, you know? So I did have this kind of like, outside of my family, I had this idea that I wasn't super lovable. I don't know that I clung on to that, but I do think that what happened is like when I got older and I got into relationships, I kind of had this belief that like, I was not okay unless I was in a relationship and that person defined me. I lived that way for very long. I like begged people in relationships, you know, and I was that person. And honestly, until like probably 4 or 5 years into my relationship with Alex. And you know, if you know my story, you know I wasn't going to meetings for the beginning of our relationship. I had no emotional sobriety. I had no spiritual foundation. I was like the worst I've ever been, okay, in my sobriety. I was like, it was worse than if I was out there drinking because I just was so like sad and miserable every single day. And you know, like, that's why when people come down and they're like, you're so happy, you're so positive, it's like, it's taken me a lot of work, you guys. Like, I literally would sit on the front porch, in all honesty, and I would just like come home from work and I would just play like what do you call it on the phone, solitaire, and smoke one cigarette after another. Like, just sit there and drink just a cup of coffee after another. And I can remember like Alex came out at one point and he's like looked at me and he was like, I don't know what to do, but I can't continue to live this way. And that was like shortly before we went into counseling. And you know, one of the things I realized by going back to meetings and like going back, and people, you know, I get a lot of people that say, you need outside help, like on videos, like my haters and stuff, you know, will come and be like, a sponsor can't solve all your problems and blah, blah, blah. That's true. A sponsor can't solve all your problems. Counselors are gratefully, you know, like gratefully, they are really like great at helping people with what we call outside issues, outside problems and things like that. And I needed that, you know? And I'm so thankful that we found a counselor that we really like, you know, connected with and meshed with at that time. And I can remember going back into meetings, and this is one thing that recovery did teach me, okay, and did save me, that a counselor didn't need to tell me, was when I started going to meetings again. I can remember that very first meeting I went back to, and it was on a Tuesday night in January, and I went back to it, and I had called my friend Tanya, and I had said, can you please take me to a meeting? And she said, I've been praying for 4 years for you to ask me that. And so I went to a meeting with Tanya that night, and I can remember on the way home, I just felt like, literally like, I don't really know how else to explain it, but I felt like I had a religious experience. Like, I had been like baptized in some way, but it wasn't like religious. It was all just completely spiritual. I felt renewed. I felt alive. And I knew that things had to change. I knew that I couldn't continue to live in bars. I knew that I mean, I hadn't drank, but I was just out at bars all the time. I knew I needed to focus on me. And I remember I went home that night, and this was so hard for me to say. And I looked at my husband and I sat him down. I remember we were sitting right here. My husband is so fantastic, you know? I look at my husband at almost 12 years and I think he's so good looking and he's so funny. But he is my partner. He is my teammate. He is just, and he's been so supportive. And I remember I looked at him and I was scared. I was really scared. And I said, listen, I'm going back to meetings and I'm going to go a lot. And I was going to 14 meetings a week. And that's going to be my life. And I've got to fix myself and I've got to take care of myself. And if I take care of myself and it helps our marriage, because our marriage was crap at that point, and it gets us back on track, then that's great. But if it doesn't, I have to go on with my life, and I know that you'll be okay, and I know that I'll be okay, but I'll be sober at least. And he looked at me, and he said, I am here for you, whatever you need. I am supportive of you, whatever you need. And, you know, he just, like, it worked, you know, and he was just so amazing through all of that. And, you know, somehow, like our marriage, and our marriage wasn't where it was just because of that. It was like so many combinations of things. You know, you're together for a long time, and then it's just like one day you wake up and you don't know the person that you're sleeping next to, you know? Counseling. Well, first of all, this has gotten way off track, but had I not been where I was in my recovery, because, you know, like when we went to counseling, I was probably 2 or 3 years maybe into going back to meetings, and I was doing a lot of service work and, you know, working with my sponsor and working steps and all that kind of stuff. Had I not built that foundation again, it was like I was almost kind of like a newcomer. I don't think that counseling would have worked the way that it needed to. Like, I needed to go in with already having done some work on myself. So then I went in, and counseling, what it did was, and I know that this sounds so bad, but it further validated for both of us that I did not need my husband, okay? I was completely fine, alone, single, by myself. And he was completely fine, alone, single, by himself. We did not need each other, but we chose to be together. And that was like the total difference for me. It was just like this click that happened. And when it talks about this in the meditation, that we felt like we were dependent on somebody else, that was the codependent part that I could never figure out before, you know? That it was like this light went off in my head, and I was like, oh my God, like, I love him. I want to be with him, but I don't need him. Like, I will be okay eventually down the road. All of the other relationships before, all of the arguments that Alex and I had, I really truly felt if he leaves or if I leave, like, I will fall apart. Like, I will not be able to survive and exist. And that's just not the case. It just isn't. And I knew it. I knew it in my heart, and I knew it in my gut. I'm going to be just fine if this marriage doesn't last. And I had to know that to be able to take care of myself enough to be an appropriate partner for my husband. And he had to know that enough about himself to be an appropriate partner for me, so that we could come together and realize we are here because we choose to be here. Well, I would rather be chosen as somebody's partner than feel like they're sleeping next to me because they have to. And that's when you get into the whole mess of just being somebody's roommate and friend. And it's sad. You know, it happens to a lot of people. But I didn't, people probably just went racing for Tucker. But I didn't want that, you know? I wanted to have that passion be alive. I wanted all of that, and I'm so thankful for it. So today I don't have that necessarily that dependency upon Alex or, you know, in my marriage. I don't. You know, I take my marriage very, very seriously. I think anybody that knows me and watches my videos knows. Like, I mean, I am like, love my husband, and I'm like, don't come for our marriage. You know what I mean? But at the same point, like, I know that, like, I'm gonna be okay. Like, I'm so happy that he is somebody. People are like, probably watching this, and they're like, oh, they're getting divorced. No, 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 no. We're getting ready to celebrate our 12th year together, and we're so excited, you know, and 9 years married, and we're happier now than probably we've ever honestly been, you know, because we're at a point where we say what we want to say. We don't really argue with each other a whole lot. If we do, like, we sat here last night, and we had a conversation about our families, both of our families, and we talked for like 2 hours. It was so fun. And I was like, I miss talking like that because we just haven't had the time recently, you know, since he's gone back to work and stuff. And like during the COVID, like we were like, you know, together all the time. How fantastic is it that we have the opportunity in our lives to choose who is there, you know? I don't want somebody to be in my life because they feel like they have to be. And I don't want to have somebody be in my life because I feel like I'm not going to be able to live if they're not. I want to have people in my life that I choose to be there. I want people in my life that lift me up and I lift them up. And, you know, and that's about freedom from codependency. It's amazing, you know? It absolutely is amazing. And I don't have a lot of people in my life today. But I can tell you that each person that I have in my life, each friend, each, you know, like, well, I just have friends and a husband. So, you know, but like, even my family members, but I don't have any really toxic family members. Half of my family is gone anyway, you know, at this point. But all of my friends and my husband, like all of those specific people, they know that they are chosen and I know that I am chosen. And so, what a blessing, you know? Like, what a blessing to have those people in my life and for me, you know, to be in their life. Because can you imagine what their life would be like if they didn't have Peter and Monn? Anyway, no, I'm joking. But no, it's like, it's total freedom from codependency to realize that, you know, like, I'm going to be okay no matter what happens. It's like with Tanya. Like, I used to think, like, if she moves to Florida, what will I do? I won't survive. I'll just be crying every day. I'll be fine. Yeah, I'll miss the hell out of her, but eventually I'll go visit her. Or maybe we'll move to Florida. Who knows, you know? And I don't borrow trouble anymore. I just don't. And, you know, these meditations and the book Codependency No More has really, really helped me from that. This has been such a long Peterisms video tonight. But anyway, yeah, I'm excited. Like, Alex and I were talking because, you know, this is our 12th year. And it's our 9-year marriage and next year married. And next year is our 10-year wedding anniversary. And, you know, we can't really travel a whole lot this year. So he said to me the other day, he's like, where do you want to go for our wedding anniversary? He goes, the Maldives. He's like, wanted to go to the Maldives forever. I'm like, well, if we're going to go to the Maldives, we better start saving our money now. So Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section about all of that. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.